And look, toxic communication can negatively affect the relationship you have with your spouse and your children. It can lead to defensiveness, stonewalling, contempt, and criticism. But by avoiding these types of communications, you will be more open to receiving feedback, resolving conflicts, and making decisions for the betterment of your family and your marriage. Amen. Look, stay with us. We're going to talk about this and much more here on Couples Pursuit Live.
Couples Pursuit.
Hello, this is Vincent
and Valerie
Woodard. And in this episode of Couples Pursuit,
we're going to talk about the effects of toxic communication on your children.
Yeah. Look, this is a serious topic, like my wife said, and I invite you to lean in, come a little closer, invite someone that you know maybe might be going through something like this. This is one of those conversations where we might want to have, but we might not know how to have. And so when you are dealing with someone that's going through toxic communication, whether it be you or yourself, like I said before, it can greatly affect your relationship with your spouse and also your children. Also, did you know that the way you interact with your spouse greatly, maybe not greatly, but it's probably a clear indicator how you might interact with your children and other people in your family. And with that, we have to understand, first of all, what is toxic communication? Well, the word toxic can mean harmful or unhealthy. And communication is a lot of definitions for it, but it could mean just transmission of a message. So to put them together, toxic communication could be the harmful or unhealthy way to transmit a message.
It's true. It is as simple as that. You know, you can say two sentences and you can say them in completely different ways. You could say, bring me the mail when you come in, right? You could say, bring me the mail when you come in. And if your spouse hears one thing, your children hear something, and even if they don't hear it, if they don't see the interaction, they can sense the tension. Yes. That happens. So you're communicating an emotion, and that emotion could be peace. Yes. It could be calm, it could be frustration, confusion, anger, disbelief. It could be a number of things. But I think that we need to understand that the way we communicate with one another transfers to the way that we communicate with our children. And even more so, that transfers to the way they communicate with others, and how well also they're able to express themselves, to express their emotions. Are they angry? Are they, withdrawn? Are they any number of things? Are they afraid to talk about how they feel? Are they afraid to discuss things with their parents? If they see you interacting in a certain way, asking questions, will they be free to come to you if they have a problem or issue? If they see you often expressing anger and dissatisfaction with one another. So.
Well, and the 4 specific ways we want to address today, maybe they can help you, can help someone. I know it helped me when I was reading it. And not the fact that I was going through it so much, but helps to understand that maybe another person that might be going through that, and offer them advice, just be able to see myself from their perspective. And one way that I found, and this is actually a way that I can relate to, is defensiveness. And first of all, how we portray it as far as married couples is when we're in an argument or we're in a discussion or disagreement, and we're always on the defensive. We're always looking for a way to counteract what our spouse is saying. Not even that they're attacking us, it's the fact that they're just actually speaking something, and you just want to prove that you're so right and they're so wrong. And okay, on to the next point. Oh no! You said this, but you but I didn't do that. This is what, and you got that wrong too. And so defensiveness, you're always looking for a way to stop the charge, I guess, you know?
Yeah, and you know, it's great that you bring up that point, because in looking to stop the charge, you're not listening. Mm-hmm. You're not listening to what the person is saying. Oftentimes, like you said, people will they'll scrap about the word that you use. Mm-hmm. And instead of, let's focus on, if I say you left your shoes, your muddy shoes in the hallway next to the dry cleaning, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And, you know, well, I didn't leave my shoes weren't muddy. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you leave your shoes in the hallway next to the dry cleaning? Mm-hmm. Maybe you didn't realize they were muddy. What is it that I'm getting at? Maybe some of what was on the shoes got onto the dry cleaning. Mm-hmm. But instead of even receiving that information, it immediately is treated as an attack. And so I need to defend myself. I didn't do whatever. Well, actually, you did. Mm-hmm. Maybe you didn't realize what happened. So let's talk about the issue, and let's not talk about the fact that I'm bringing an issue, you know, that I'm raising an issue. And when we do that, we don't hear the other person. We don't honor them. We don't respect them, because both parties have a right to express their opinions, emotions, you know, and viewpoint within reason. Now, we talk about toxicity, being toxic, being harmful to the relationship. It's harmful to the relationship and deteriorating if we're yelling at each other. Mm-hmm. If we are stonewalling one another, which means, you know, we just both kind of go to our corners and we don't communicate. Mm-hmm. So whatever happens normally within the household in relation to children is something shifts. And if we think they don't notice, mm-hmm. then we do them a disservice.
Yes, they are so much smarter than maybe you give them credit for. They hear so much more than you thought they should have heard or would have heard, or they notice so much more than we thought they would have noticed. And man, it's amazing how we have 3 grown children. Yes. And it's amazing how they can tell us some things. You're like, wow, you remember that? You know? Mm-hmm.
Things that you thought were private, things that you thought, you know, may have been unseen or unheard, or things that we processed as an adult from, let's take the perspective of a giraffe and a turtle, right? They both are grass eaters. One's very low to the ground. One's very high, high up. The access that we have as adults, we sometimes don't even notice the little things that are going on around us. Mm-hmm. But that little bitty turtle can look up and see all of the things that are going on and all of the things that are falling around them. And that's how the children are. Just because the turtle has, you know, short legs and a short neck doesn't mean that it doesn't absorb the same, you know, whatever's in the atmosphere. And sometimes we are so high up and above their level, so we think as adults, it's like they don't really know what's going on. You know, they can't see things from my vantage point, or we push them off and like, well, they're kids and we're adults. And no, you don't do that. You don't do that, because what happens is they do absorb what's happening. It does affect them, even if they don't ever say anything to you. Yes, it affects them in some way. In my former line of work, I studied a little bit about something called ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, and how those things that happen in childhood can affect the child, how it can affect their brain, their development, even their biology, and even more so in infants than in older children. You're able to see the biological, the biochemical changes that happen when there's yelling, screaming, crying, chaos, you know, gunshots, all these different things that happen. And we don't give them enough credit. Just because they cannot communicate how they feel doesn't mean that they're not having feelings. And then those feelings show up and, you know, wetting the bed, stuttering sometimes, a lack of confidence, delayed development, talking back or withdrawing, acting out in school, whatever behavior they're witnessing at home, they will sometimes pass that behavior on to a younger sibling or older sibling or to their classmates. And then because we are way up here looking at things from our vantage point, we don't really see, well, we just passed all of that down. What we were messing with at the top of the trees fell down to the bottom, and they have seen that, and then they're disciplined for being children who are out of order when we have been adults who are out of order.
Amen.
Yeah.
So some remedies for defensiveness, especially when you're you wanted to do better, you want to have a more effective conversation. We need to learn how to listen actively or participate in active listening. Maybe what you heard wasn't what was meant. Yeah, maybe you're looking for something that they're not putting out. Active listening. Actually say, can you clarify what you meant by that? Can you explain? I'm having trouble understanding. Can please reframe, or can you say it again? Because I didn't quite. I want to understand what you're saying.
Right. Can you rephrase that?
Yeah. Active listening.
Or you can repeat it back to them. So is what you're saying that such and such, and you can try to disarm your mate. A kind answer turns away wrath. If someone is going off and you're just like, well, I see that you're upset. Can you tell me why you might be so upset? Why you're so upset? Well, you such and such and such. Okay, so whatever happened made you upset. Why did that make you upset? I didn't mean to, because what's going to happen a lot of times is you haven't done anything, right? And sometimes it may just be that person is having a bad day, or their perception of a situation has triggered them in some way, shape, or form. And it's up to us to learn what triggers us. Because what happens is, if you're triggered, then the activity, the response to the activity comes from within you. Because if a person is triggered by something, the something that triggers them is not always an attack. For instance, I talked about my former line of work. And that former line of work, one of them, I've done many things in my lifetime, but one of them was human trafficking, prevention, and education. And one of the things that some of the officers would share with us sometimes is that some of the women who had been trafficked were very unreliable witnesses. And they were unreliable witnesses because of how they remembered things. And they could remember certain things that may trigger them, like the smell of a cologne, or somebody turning on a shower, or the sound of pots and pans clanging, or a train going by, because these are things that were present while they were being victimized. And so pots and pans, a train, the shower, all of those things those are harmless in and of themselves. But if it puts the person in the state of mind of when they were being victimized, then they feel triggered and they respond. And so on a different level, the same thing can happen. You raised your voice at me. Well, I didn't mean to raise my voice. Well, I don't like to be yelled at because that reminds me of such and such. And oftentimes we don't say it reminds me of such and such. We just get angry because the person did whatever they did. So we have to learn how not to to manage our own triggers, to share our triggers with our spouse, let them know what they are, why they exist. And that might take some time to do that. And it may, become sensitive, but I think it's worth sharing. And if you do that, it'll go a long way in diffusing arguments sometimes.
And so another one is, we mentioned earlier, is stonewalling. And that is basically what my wife alluded to earlier, when we answer with short answers, or not answer at all. We actually act like the person didn't even really speak anything, or maybe I'm not even interested in what they're saying. So I don't pay attention. I didn't ask follow-up questions. We're really just not even talking. You're talking to a wall. That's what it seems
communication.
like.
Yeah, and oftentimes there's no. The body language is cold. It's like there may as well be a stone wall in between you, as far as communication, being able to hear one another, speaking to one another, interacting with one another, and connecting with one another. It's just not happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a tendency to hold back from expressing what you really think because you're under the impression that the other person doesn't really want to hear what you have to say. And so now the other person that really wanted to talk is not talking. The person that didn't want to talk has shut down, and we're at this place right here. So some remedies to that is, first of all, let's check for feelings. Let's do a temperature check. What's going on? What's the temperature with your spouse? What is it like? Okay, are they really upset with you? Are they upset about something else? Let's see what's going on. Check in with them and see, are they feeling overwhelmed about either this topic that we're talking about, or maybe it's something else is going on with them that either they have shared or they're just kind of like don't want to talk about it. But in order for us to move past this situation that we're in right now, we have to have some vulnerability. We have to have some dialogue of what's going on with you, because I can't just tell you about my issues and my feelings and you like, well, what about me? But you're keeping it all inside. check in with them. Check with the feelings. Yeah.
And no one knows exactly what you're thinking or how you're feeling, even if the average person, general things like people don't like to be yelled at, they don't like to be talked down to, people get hungry, they get cold, common things you understand, right? But your spouse doesn't know what's going on in your head. They don't know what you're thinking about, so share that with them. And this leads to effective communication. When you're talking to each other, when you're checking in, when you're having those moments when you share, when you are intimate with the details of your life and your past and your history and the what makes you work the way that you do and the things that you wish you could change about yourself but you have struggles with, things that you want, need, and desire. When you talk about those things, all of that communication and closeness and vulnerability tears down the walls. It doesn't leave a foundation for toxic communication. So it's important to work on that. It does not just happen. For some people, it's easier than for others. But it takes work, and it's worth it, because the goal here is for us to have a healthy marriage, healthy relationship. And if we have children, we're responsible for how we raise those children and what emotional environment they're in, as well as physical environment.
Yes, and they see all of this. Believe me. They see the way that you respond when your spouse tries to come to you and vulnerability and try to ask, hey, what's going on with you? I really want to talk. I really want to discuss what's going on. And you're like, so now the children is like, okay, it's okay to talk to mama like that. It's okay to talk.
That's how men talk to women. Yeah. That's how women talk to men. And they don't have to say anything. But just like you can see children mimicking what they see, and sometimes we think it's cute or it's funny, but as well as the good things or the common things, they do the bad things as well. They mimic whatever our behavior is. They become a copy of what we are to some degree, and we have to own that. And also, I think it's very important for us to remember that we cannot say "do as I say, not as I do." That doesn't make any sense. That does not. No.
Third, contempt. Man, this is probably one of my pet peeves when I see or hear or experience somebody talking to their spouse like they actually hate them, or they're a child, or they're just lower on the totem pole, I guess. It's like you're speaking to them with disgust. Why in the world you so stupid? Why you? And I'm just like, woo, wait, hold on. No, that right there is a clear path. No, maybe not a clear. That can take the love out of a situation really quick. It can have someone doubting whether I really want to be in this relationship with this person right here, because they're just going to treat me like I'm half of a spouse, like I'm half of a person. And I that's one of my pet peeves. I just don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that clearly it is emotionally abusive to talk to someone that way, to be demeaning and degrading and putting them down. And again, it gives an example of how to a young woman and to a growing boy of how men and women interact with one another, whether it's acceptable. And then later in life, those behaviors may show up. Then you have children, you have people, adults who say, well, I'm never going to get married. Well, why? Well, they may tell you that, and they may not tell you why. Well, sometimes it's because I saw my mom and dad go at it all the time, and I'm never going to put myself through that. I'm not putting my kids through that. Or I'm going to get married and get out of this house as soon as I can because I don't like what I see. And they don't have the tools to fix it, but they want to create their own situation. So they rush into a relationship, or they take the first loving person that comes along, or seemingly loving person that comes along, and they equate that to love because what they're experiencing between their parents is toxic. It's hurtful. So the first person that shows them something different may not be the best person for them, but have they made a good choice? We're responsible for how they enter the world.
Yeah, and now I was going to bring up the fact that some remedies to contempt is, I think, one of the main ones, and you actually taught me this a long time ago, is to speak respectively even when you're angry.
Absolutely. I've said it before, and I'll probably say it a million times. A true indicator of how you feel about me is how you respond to me when you're not pleased with me. And if you cannot be upset with me or angry with me without being disrespectful, that's a problem for me.
Yeah. Wow. So the fourth one it's kind of the cousin to it a little bit, is criticism. When you're always doubting or demeaning what your spouse is saying, what they're doing, what they're wearing, how they
looking, show up in the world, who they are. Yeah.
Everything is a criticism. Everything is like, wow, I can't believe you've done that. Wow, why in the world you do? And I'm like, wait a minute. This is your spouse. This is your person.
That's the best you can do.
You love because, and maybe contempt might be the way you feel if you're angry, if you're upset, if you're mad, or maybe even you're hurt. But criticism kind of comes along when you're agitated. It kind of comes along when you're in a rush or about something, and now because the other person is not moving in the way that you want them to move, you feel it's okay to just criticize them. Like that's going to train them, like, well, they won't do that again, because if they know they do that again, they know I'm gonna get on them, and it still happens again.
And again, that transfers to the children. So I might not be as eager to show mom or dad my drawing, because when mom cooked dinner, he was like, this is the best you can do. I don't want him to say that to me, or I don't want to tell mom about this or that, because when dad told her about his promotion or his raise on the job, that's the best you can do. You've been working at that job 20 years and that's all the money you make.
Well, yeah, that's the thing about it. It's like, okay, now we complain, I guess, we can talk about, hey, no, I don't like that, the grass is growing up, or I don't like the backyard looking, kind of junky or whatever. And it's okay to talk about some things you dislike,
right?
Because maybe a complaint. I'm trying to think of a better word, but a complaint could be, talking about the action. The action, the thing that's happening. The backyard kind of junky. The yard needs cut. Whatever. But a criticism is more talking about the behavior of the other.
You're a slob, right? You're lazy. Our yard looks like XYZ because you're lazy. That's different than, we need to tidy up the yard.
Yeah. And kids and children see that. They see how you interact, how you're putting the spouse down, you're putting your wife down. You put in your and you might not call it that, but I guarantee they see that and they probably call it that too. And then they grow up to be adults to do the same things in their relationships,
or accept the same things.
Or accept the same things.
Yeah, and it becomes normalized for them. Sometimes they don't, because if you see a thing all your life, sometimes you don't realize that it's a thing until you go out into the world and see that people do it differently. Like, you know, we had someone to come across our path. It was like, you guys are like this all the time? Well, this is what I would like. You know, my parents never behaved like that. They don't talk to each other and they laugh and, you know, joke and hug and kiss. And it was...
Yeah, we was talking about us doing that we actually like each other.
Yeah. And they said that, y'all really like each other. Yeah, we do.
Crazy about it.
But it was not normal for them growing up. You know, and so we have to be responsible for how we show up in the world and for how we prepare our children to show up in the world. Yes.
And so some remedies to criticism is actually to learn how to make specific requests. Not like the general statements like, man, you always do this, or you're always like that, or you're always doing this to me. No, specific requests. What do you have an issue with right now? You know, and not about their behavior, about whatever action or how it's imposing on you. You know, I don't like to be late. You know, I want to be there on time. We said we're gonna be there at 7:30. I don't want to be leaving the house at 7:30. What can we do so we can, you know, it's a request.
Right. Yeah, you're letting them know, this is how I feel. This is why I feel this way. Is there something we can do to get there, instead of, will you hurry up? You're always late. And then I remember you stopped me one time before church and you were like, babe. Because it was always something with the kids. One of them, whether they didn't want to wear something, they didn't want to get up, I don't want to eat or something, and I'm fussing. And it became this pattern. And he was like, do you recognize that, you know, before we go to church, sometimes it just get a little... And I was like, wow. Yeah. And I had to check myself. And try to manage that and get ahead of those issues with the children, so Sunday morning didn't become chaos before we went to church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guilty as charged.
And I think that discussions like these, we talk about them so we can see the pattern. You know, so we could see, and maybe we didn't define it as these things: defensiveness, stonewalling, contempt, and criticism. And you might call it some other things, but you see the pattern. And once you recognize the pattern, now you can change it. Now you can, you know, reverse it and say, hey, I do notice when I get agitated, I start saying things about you, start talking about you as a person, not about what you did. I do notice that when I'm angry and I'm hurt and I'm in an argument, I think it's okay for me to just say what I want to say because there's no rules to argue. No, first of all, we talked about in the previous video setting boundaries and setting rules and knowing how you should interact with one another in happy or not so happy times.
It's what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Some things should just be off the table. And once you have said something, you know, people say sticks and stones may break my bones. We used to say that when I was a kid, but words will never hurt me. It's one of the biggest lies I've ever heard in my life, because harsh words from people that don't really know you, that you don't really know, can be upsetting, you know, can be frustrating, can make you angry. Or maybe you could just, you know, you got enough self-esteem, just blow it off. Yeah. But harsh words from people that you love, respect, and admire, trust, and that you're vulnerable with, they dig deep.
Right.
They dig deep.
And so some homework, if this is you or you're in a situation like this, or you may know somebody in a situation like this, you can share this with them. Some homework for you. Some examples of healthy communication is to listen more than you speak. Okay? Do not interrupt one another. I know it's like sometimes my wife is a talker and she talks, but I know what? She was a talker from day one. I think that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with her, because I don't talk as much. I know I do a lot of talking here now, but I don't talk as much. So if I didn't talk and she didn't talk, we would just be sitting at the table looking at our food, So my wife, she wants to express herself. Do not interrupt each other. Healthy communication. Do not talk over one another. Okay? And give your spouse time without constantly jumping in with your ideas, mansplaining, womansplaining, or whatever, how we should fix the situation. Because healthy communication builds healthy marriages. Healthy marriages build better families. Okay, healthy families, your children. Healthy families build better communities build better cities build better nations, and a better nation builds a better world. It starts with us. Okay, it starts with you, then it starts with us. And your children will greatly benefit from this. Amen. It'll
save you some time, some regret, some apologies. And here's the biggest thing I want to leave you with. If you are the parents that have exposed your children to toxic communication, don't sweep it under the rug. One of the best things we can do with respect and within reason is admit our faults. To pretend that because we are above the age of 18 or above the age of 21 means that we can do anything we want to and we don't bear any responsibility to anyone else is a poor example. So we have had to say to our children, you know what, we were wrong.
Yeah.
I have had to say that, you know what, Mama, I missed that one.
Yeah, we didn't do everything right. And wow, I'm sorry. We did the best we thought we knew at the time.
Right.
But even right now, you're still looking at me like, wow, we did something. We overlooked that. We didn't realize that they were listening. We didn't realize that they were looking.
We let our emotions get the best of us.
Yes. You said not arguing loudly. Close the door. Okay. Like that door is a metal.
Like it's the stone wall, like it's the barrier, and they can hear you. And even if they don't hear you, my youngest daughter, she said to me, oh wow, this is gonna make me a little bit emotional, but she said to me, after some time, my husband and I, we surrendered to God in our processes. We both had given our life to the Lord years ago, but we were having difficulties and we had to deal with our own individual pain, issues, trauma, past, all of that, so that we could learn how to communicate well with one another. And after that, because there would be, could you stop yelling? Stop yelling, stop yelling, stop yelling. Well, if you shouldn't have done such and such. And so whatever we were feeling superseded the fact that the kids were maybe downstairs and in the back of the house, but they were still in the house, and after we finally, surrendered, she said to me, maybe 2 weeks ago, hon, she said, when you and Dad would talk sometimes, I would just listen, like I'd get still. And she'd be like, are they arguing? And she's like, oh no, they're just, And just for her to feel like that. And I know that our oldest daughter has felt the same way before, because we're having heated conversations about issues that we were not resolving like the Christian adults that we are supposed to be. Now, there wasn't like, knock down, drag out fights, but arguments can be just as damaging, the tone. And then what happens after that? We don't talk to each other, and Yeah,
it's like when we hear any two people that you like argue, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You can hear your best, you can hear your friends, you can hear your parents, you can hear your even coworkers, like they arguing, like, ooh, man.
Yeah, there's an energy that flows through the air. A tension that's there. Sometimes when you walk in a room, everybody knows the feeling of walking into a room and you feel like, well, everybody just stop talking, or you walk into a room and you just feel the tension between two people, and it's like, oh, and nothing has been said. Children are little people in training. They have the same feelings and emotions that we do, you know, and we have to be aware of that.
Amen. And if you are the spouse that's probably given these toxic situations, probably you're like attributing to them the most, man, I urge you to first of all admit that, and then also, gosh, pray to God to ask Him to remove that hardened heart that's inside of you, because you alone, you probably been like this for a long time. You probably been dealing with a relationship, not just with your spouse, just any relationships,
family,
a long time, and it's something. There's something to the power of prayer that can change any situation, and I urge you today to do that. As you go back and look through these notes and share with someone, I urge you to reflect on yourself, if this is your situation or somebody else's, and also the effect on your children. Recognize that it does have an effect, whether you might think you know it or not.
Right. You don't do them a service by denying it, because sometimes we don't admit a thing because we have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what, I really did that. I messed up. And if you make an excuse, well, they just kids, they don't know, they don't understand, they don't hear. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And yes, it is your responsibility. And if you mess that up, say you messed that up, and then model for them how it should be done. You know, show them what it is that can be done, and realize that if you or your spouse are the person who is toxic, or God forbid if both of you are toxic, no one has a level head, and it's just like, you know, the gloves are off whenever someone gets angry, and then you one up one another and all of those foolish things. Remember that everyone is responsible for their own actions. We can never say, well, if you hadn't done this or that, then I wouldn't have done such and such. Whatever we do it because that's what we choose to do. Be careful what you choose, you know? Choose to have a conversation. Choose to be silent and listen. Choose to be honest with yourself and not make excuses. That's what I wanted to get around to. Not make excuses for why you did what you did. Let's say you had a toxic household. Well, that's just the way my mom and daddy was. That's how we well baby. I understand that that's the way that it was, but is that the way that it should be now? Yeah,
there is a such thing as generational curses. It is a real thing, but you know, there's also a thing called generational blessings. It's also something that the anointing can flow from you. You can actually change, do a 180, and start leading your family, start being the examples of a couple, and to your to not only to yourself, to your marriage, but also to your children, and also to your family. And it just grows, and it just grows, and it just grows. So now your children see, wow, he changed, he did this, or she changed and she did that, and now look at them now. Wow, I can do it too. And I get in a situation where I can't see any hope, but yeah, there is hope. That my dad did it. You know, my mom did it. You know, there is hope, and you'd be amazed how just you right now, recognizing that you have an issue, and then saying, "Look, I want to do something about it," and you doing something about it.
Yeah, I want to be better. You know, and why spend a lifetime together, or why spend 15 or 20 years together? You know, just to end it because you can't figure out how to get it right, or to spend a lifetime together not being happy and not loving one another. What legacy do you leave? Just because we stay together doesn't mean we thrive together. Why not thrive together?
Exactly.
You know, and you gotta take toxicity off the table, because things that are toxic, you know, in another way, if we talk about landfills and all that stuff, it causes deterioration of the life around them, of the people, of the water, of the air. You slowly die. Why do that?
Yeah.
You know, why do that to yourself? Why suffocate your relationship? Because you don't want to manage your emotions. And I have to say this, I know we're over time at this point, but if your children were in a room behaving the way you and your spouse behave when you argue, what would you do?
Wow.
How would you handle it?
You send yourself to the room.
Would they be on punishment? Would you sit them down when you see your brother or sister? You know, when you see your kids and they, you know, hit each other, or they yell at each other, or they shove each other around, or you know, call each other names. Do you encourage that? Do you correct that? Do you reprimand them? Are there consequences? Well, just because we're above the age of 18 or 21, if we do the same thing, we're not any better than two children.
It probably gets on your nerves too. I bet the children was like, I wish they'd just be quiet.
Or how they gonna tell me how to behave?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, this is so good. This is so good. That was a good point, baby.
It's necessary.
Great point.
Boy, if kids could really tell you how they feel, and not just how they feel like I'm angry or I want to tell you about yourself, but if they could tell you the gamut of emotions that runs through them as they experience you as a parent, you might change the way that you behave.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And this is for a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for hanging out with us on this episode of Couples Pursuit Live. Once again, we urge you to share this with your friends and family, your loved ones. And also, we develop a guide called The Guide to Effective Communication, and that we're giving away for free. So the training is free. The guide, you know, it's a small fee, but the training is free. And I'll make a link down low. You can click on it and go to. It's a really, it's like less than an hour of teaching, just on topic of effective communication, just trying to break it down for you and teach you some of the things that we went through and how we overcame them and what you can do starting today. So it's available to you right now. Go to the link and hopefully leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about this video and also about any other videos that we have.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, this, as I said in the beginning, this was going to be a little more serious topic. This is something that's dear to my heart. But I hope that you heard something that can encourage you today, maybe something that may have corrected you today. Whatever you heard, it was not meant to condemn you. We do this because we want to draw awareness. We do this because of, you know, some of the pitfalls that we have made, and we don't want to see others continue in that way or to fall into that way. So, we hope you've enjoyed. Go back and review, as my husband says, share. And until next time, we'll see you here on Couples Pursuit Live. Bye.